Hey guys, it's Monica here at Hyrani Institute, and today we are going to talk about a really important topic in sugaring, and that is bruising. So what is bruising, why does it happen, and how can we prevent it? So let's talk about it and let's find out more details about how you can prevent this from happening. And this is a really common occurrence, especially with my new sugarists who are just starting out. They don't really have a great hold on their technique yet, but after this video, and make sure you guys stay tuned till the end for the #1 reason why sugarists bruise their clients, you guys will not bruise your clients anymore. So I think we all know what a bruise is, but in terms of sugaring, when we are applying the sugar to the skin, if you lift up in the wrong direction or there is some kind of suction with the wax or the sugar, there is going to be a phenomenon happening where the blood vessels underneath the skin are going to break and pull into that area. It's going to create a red or a purple mark that's going to look similar to a bruise as if you had bumped your knee or bumped your ankle on something, and it's not going to look very pleasant to the client. The clients get really scared when they see this. They think that they're really hurt from the service, and usually this doesn't actually hurt the client. It just is visually unappealing. And a bruise will naturally go away after a few days from the client's skin. There's no extra treatment, unfortunately, that we can do to remedy a bruise after it's happened, except for time. So you do just have to wait for that bruise to naturally go away on its own. However, when it comes to bruising, we want to focus on the prevention. So understanding why a bruise happens and how we can prevent it is the most important thing. Now, when you guys are working with clients, I always stress, and I'm really adamant about this, to be extremely honest and upfront with your clients. So in every sugarist or waxer's career, you will bruise somebody, especially in the beginning. Hopefully, once you guys get a little bit more experience, this will not be happening to you anymore. But in those early stages, when you guys are still learning and perfecting your technique, when the bruising does happen, I always recommend that you be upfront and honest with the client. So tell them, hey, you have bruise right here in this area, and you have to tell them about the bruise. So you have to tell them that, hey, it's not going to hurt you. Nothing is going to happen with your skin. It's not going to cause permanent damage, anything like that. It's not going to scar, anything crazy like that. It simply is just a few broken capillaries under the skin, and it will go away within a couple days. And I also advise you guys to include bruising as a risk in your intake forms to have clients sign away liability on this when they sign up for your service. And that's also just good education for the client to help them know what the risks of sugaring are. And bruising is a risk of sugaring, which doesn't necessarily implicate any health complications, but it can be a little bit unsightly. So we do want to make sure that the clients are informed, they are not freaked out when they see it, and that you're honest with them so that they don't go home, see a bruise, and wonder what happened and think that you really hurt them. So that having that communication with your clients is really important. It's going to build client trust, and it's going to be a really good look for building your business. Now, with all of that being said, let's talk about how we can prevent bruising and why it happens. So #3 is melted sugar. So melted sugar is a problem with sugaring for a couple of reasons, but we really don't want the sugar to be melting at all. And once your sugar does melt onto the client, your risk for bruising is going to increase by a lot. So if your paste is melted on the client, you're going to notice that it feels really viscous, it feels really sticky, and when you're trying to flick off the sugar, it's just not working, it's just not happening. It's either sticking to the client, it's pulling them, and that pulling of the stickiness is actually what is going to bruise the client, because it's going to create that suction and it's going to pull on the skin, it's going to break those blood vessels. So we want to keep avoiding this from happening. Now, there's usually 3 reasons why melted sugar will happen. The first reason is that you made the wrong paste selection. So I recommend that you guys watch my previous video about paste selection and make sure that you guys are selecting the right paste. So you guys need to be aware of what paste for what body area you are going to be working with. And don't try to work past your skill level. So I see a lot of new sugarists, they want to use soft paste, they want to use the, softest paste on the smallest body area. And that's not always the best idea if you guys aren't already at a pro level. So don't feel rushed to get into the really soft pastes early on. If you guys are still working with medium paste to really perfect your flicking technique, then really just stick with that until you feel completely comfortable. And it's also, of course, going to depend on the client, the climate, and all of the other factors like that, which we discussed in my paste selection video. But make sure that you guys are, first of all, selecting the right paste that not only is going to suit your client, that's going to suit your temperature, and that's going to suit your skill level at the time. I know that I was really eager as a new sugarist to work with a softer paste so that I could get through the service faster, but it's not always the best idea. If you guys don't have a really great grip and handle on how to work with soft paste, then it's really not recommended that you start with that paste, especially if you just spread it all over somebody's legs and you have a huge mess just dripping off their leg or off their arm. It's a pretty sticky situation to be in, and that's usually what causes the bruising, because you're just trying to get all that sugar off and it's just really overwhelming for somebody who's still learning. So try to avoid that situation, work in smaller sections, and work with a little bit of a harder paste in the beginning. Number two, melted sugar can also be caused by a hot client. So every client has a different body temperature. Some clients are coming back from a workout, which they probably should be showering before they do, but they don't always do that, which is fine. You just gotta work with the right paste. So be aware of how hot is your client, how cold is your client. Are they prone to more perspiration? Are they prone to having more dry skin? All these factors are going to come into play when you are making your paste selection. So this is also going to be a factor that you have to pay attention to. And once you guys get to know your clients a little bit better, how their skin reacts to certain things, you can know which kind of paste is going to suit which body area at the time. And then of course, number three, the reason for melted sugar is going to be your environment. So you have to be aware of how hot is your room, what's the weather like, are the clients coming in from a super hot outside area? Because if they are, they're rushing to the appointment from their car, they're already going to be sweating. It's going to make the client even hotter when they get to the appointment. So make sure that you are aware of the climate, aware of the humidity, and all of those things, which are not only going to affect how your sugar behaves, your paste selection, and all that good stuff. So all of these factors kind of combine into one, but these are just all things to be aware of to make sure that you have the right handle on your sugar to prevent that stickiness and that sticky mess from happening that causes the bruising in the first place. All right, so we made it to the number two reason, which is going to be not holding the skin. So when it comes to sugaring, you have to hold the skin tight. And my policy is that if you're holding the skin, you could always hold it tighter. So keep that in the back of your mind when you are sugaring the clients. You are always going to want to hold the skin back from behind where you are sugaring from. So let's say you're sugaring from this area, you want to hold right behind where you're pulling from. And what this is going to do is going to prevent that skin from actually moving with the flick and raising up, creating that suction and creating that bruise. So you really want to hold the skin tight. Don't be scared to really pull and really push down on the client. It's not going to hurt them. Of course, don't do it too hard. Don't be stabbing them with your hand, but the harder you pull, generally the less is going to hurt the client when you actually do remove that sugar off the skin. And it's also going to prevent that bruising. So this is really important. Now keep in mind that with different skin types and different body types, you are going to have to pull harder than other clients. So that's totally normal. And you'll start to learn as you work with more hair types and more body types of how hard you need to be pulling. So if you guys are doing a Brazilian, for instance, I always suggest pulling upwards on the client. So if you don't have any free hands at the moment and you're pulling one direction and you need the client to pull in the other direction, feel free to ask them. Just say, hey, can you actually pull for me right here? And they will do it no problem. And it's going to help them get a great result. So most clients don't mind at all having to do this. And now keep in mind, in body areas that have more creases and more folds, usually you will have to pull sometimes in the two directions. So it's totally fine to ask your client to pull in one direction while you pull in the other direction. Make sure that skin is nice and tight, and then you can get a great flick and make sure that you don't bruise the client. All right, and then we've made it to the number one reason why you are bruising the client. So the number one reason is because you are not coming to your edge. You guys have to come to the edge. And this is the number one reason why sugaring is not effective for new sugarists, and it's also why you bruise the client. So when it comes to sugaring, you always have to move past your edge. So I will show you guys an example on the screen right here. So basically, if you guys are coming and you're pulling from the middle of where you should be pulling, think about it like this. You're actually going to snap their skin right in the middle, right? You don't want to do that. It's going to create that suction and it's going to create a really nasty bruise for the client. When you guys are pulling, let's say that this glove right here is your edge. Instead of pulling right before the edge, which is what a lot of new sugarists do, they think, oh, I'm at the edge. No, you're not at the edge. You have to come past the edge. Once you come past, guess what? It's going to lift right off like a dream. So when in doubt, always come a little bit further out. So, make sure that you're going past, you're molding, and that you're moving with that flicking motion. And that is going to prevent that bruising from happening. And I swear to you, it's going to really improve your sugaring technique. Once you guys remember, hey, I got to come past my edge, then you're not going to have that pulling anymore, and you're not going to be struggling and fighting with your sugar to remove it from the client's skin anymore. Well, now you guys know what causes bruising with clients and how to prevent it. I also want to add in one extra little detail in regards to this topic. So keep in mind, guys, that not every client's skin is going to be the same. So this is something as an esthetician that you guys already know, but just to remind you, everyone has a different skin type, everyone has a different hormonal profile, different medication, and things that affect the way that they react to certain stimulation on the skin. So some clients are more prone to bruising than others. And with certain clients that are on certain medication, think about blood thinners, other prescription medications, these can be risk factors that are going to increase their risk of bruising. So you guys should obviously be taking an intake that has medical information on it before you are putting your hands on the client. And if you see that a client is taking a blood thinner or any kind of medication that could increase the risk of bruising, you might want to consider discussing with them prior to their first service that this is going to be a risk, and that, you know, if they do see that bruising happening, that's nothing to worry about. Just kind of warning them that, hey, this could happen, but don't worry, I'm going to do my best to prevent this from happening. And you guys, certain clients, there is super sensitivity to bruising. So even with the most lightest pull, you're gonna see a couple of those little red dots pop up. And sometimes it's really hard to prevent those little tiny micro bruises from happening with these types of clients. You have to have a really soft hand if you guys see that these little marks are starting to pop up. And that's simply because the client has a higher risk factor. So if you guys do notice that, make sure that you adjust your technique accordingly to suit those clients' needs for their skin type. But in general, if you guys are following these 3 steps to make sure that you're not gonna bruise the client, you will have no problems. All right, well, I hope this video helped you guys. If you guys have any other questions, please let me know down below. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Have you worked with clients that have had bruising? Have you guys had issues with this in the past? I hope that utilizing these techniques will help you guys to improve your sugaring technique in the future. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Bye.